Alright, so we can start, guys. So this is the question. Money demand in an economy in which no interest rate is paid on money is given by that function. That's our money demand function. And then I've got the price level 50, I've got output 100, I've got a real interest rate 0.06, where Y is a real income and R is a nominal rate of interest. Given that rate of inflation is 10% of real interest rate, calculate the following. Okay, so I think the issue is just here. Given that inflation is 10% of real interest rate, so given that inflation is 10% of real interest rate, and we understand what real interest rate is. It's just this one, 0.06, we've been given there. And then this is nothing but just the normal money demand function, which is of course a function of output and the rate of interest. Okay, and the price level output we've been given, So now get a pen and a paper and a calculator, okay, because we are now preparing for Mr. Banda. So if you're going to play, well, play. Alright, so let's go. So I'm saying that, so I've got a real money demand function there, we've got the price level there, we've got output there, we've got the real interest rate there, where Y is the real income and R is the nominal rate of interest. And then given that inflation is 10% of real interest rate, calculate the following. So the first one, they're asking us to calculate for real money demand. Real money demand. Okay? So now, if the real money demand function is that one, okay, is that one, we have output level, which is 1,000, and then we have the rate of interest, because they've told us that inflation is 10% of real rate of interest. But what we want is a nominal rate of interest to plug there where there's I. So which means we first have to calculate for I. We first have to calculate for No. Okay, we first have to calculate for I. Okay, first have to calculate for I. Right. Alright, so let's go. So how do we get the real money demand? So we understand that, as I was saying, we can get that from that, but the problem is that we don't have the nominal rate of interest. Meaning that we first have to calculate for the nominal rate of interest. We first have to calculate for the nominal rate of interest. Okay, let me just display my solutions. Okay, so this one. Okay, it's this one. So now, the real money demand. So we have this equation, M over PD is equal to 500 plus 0.2y minus 1,000i. And then the price level 50, output is 1,000. Then they've said that inflation is 10% of real interest rate. So 10% is just 0.1. Okay, so 0.1 of 0.06. In case someone is wondering where I'm getting the 0.06, the 0.06 is there. Real interest rate is 0.06, and then they're saying that given that inflation is 10% of real interest rate, which means it's just going to be 10%, which is 0.1 of 0.06. So if you open the brackets there, you're going to get 0.006 as the rate of inflation. But what we want is to get the nominal rate of interest, and understand that the nominal rate of interest is the summation of real interest rate and the inflation rate. But we have the real interest rate as 0.06. We have the real interest rate as 0.06, and then we're just from calculating the value for inflation rate, which is 0.006. So when you add these two, I believe you're getting 0.066. So this is the value of the nominal rate of interest, which we are going to plug there where there is I, for us to find the real money demand. Are you there? So what I'm saying is, first of all, we have this equation for the real demand function. for the real demand function. Yes, we have it. But then, yes, we have output as 1,000. But what we don't have is a nominal rate of interest, which we've used this method to get the nominal rate of interest as 0.066, which we're going to plug in there where there's I. All right. So M over P is 500 plus 0.2y minus 1,000 I, which is just going to be 500 plus 0.2 of what is output. We've been given that output is 1,000. Output is 1,000. So if output is 1,000, we're going to plug in there output 1,000 minus 1,000 times the rate, the nominal rate of interest is 0.06. Brother man.
Yes, bro.
Okay.
I know it's fine.
Okay. All right. So let's continue. So we've got 1,000 times the nominal rate of interest is 0.06. So we plug in there. When you calculate this, when you punch this per calculator, I'm sure you're getting 634. Okay, I'm sure you're getting 634. All right. Are we together here? Believe you me, what we're doing here might come. Okay? What we're doing here might come. If not this question, something similar to this. So, where we're not clear, this is the time for us to be more open. Because I hear it's going to be physical.
I have a question.
Go ahead.
Why did have a question? Why did we
One person
say
at a time?
10% of 0.06?
Huh?
What we said? What are you doing when we get 10% of 0.06?
Well, I didn't get your question clear, but I think we're talking about the 10% of 0.06. I think that's where the question is coming from. I don't know. So we've got, given that inflation is 10% of real interest rate, that's where the thing is coming from. Given that inflation is 10% of real interest rate. So that's where the 10% of 0.06 is coming from. Because 10% over real interest rate. Real interest rate is 0.06. So basically, inflation is just 10% of 0.06. I'm sure I've answered your question.
Yes, thank you.
Someone wanted to ask a question? Johnny.
What am I calculating?
Okay. I'm sure that was Joyce. Your mic was on.
Unlike you.
I didn't get that. Okay, so let's do this. Can you punch this though? I want to clear some air. Someone is saying it's not the correct one. Punch this.
It's correct.
It's correct. Thank you.
Yes.
Okay. All right. So, which means we are done with this question. I believe we are all okay. I'll be very slow.
But isn't it that you wrote 0.2 on the y instead of putting 0.20?
So just a minute.
But it's correct
Where?
either way. It's okay.
There on the y, it's 0.20. That's what's given in the question.
0.20 is the same thing as 0.2.
No. No, the calculator is pretty different.
Same.
Who is that? Is that Walia?
10.
No, Walia. 0.10 is the same thing as 0.1.
And then answer. That's 500.
I confirm.
It's true. You're giving the same answer.
500, 132.
That's what I'm
given
saying,
this.
Kavili. That 0.2 is the same as 0.2000000. No difference. Those zeros are insignificant. Alright. Can we continue? Ndalama. I believe you are clear now, okay?
Yes.
Okay, good. Thank you. Let's go to question 2. The nominal money demand nominal money demand. So the difference between real money demand and nominal money demand is that with the real money demand, you are trying to divide the quantity of money that you have by the price. You're getting real in that case. But with nominal, all you want is to calculate the quantity of money that is circulating in an economy. Okay, so that's a difference between real money demand and nominal money demand. With real money demand, you are dividing the money that is circulating by the price level. That's why I've got M over P. But with nominal, there what you want to understand is how much money is flowing in the economy. So of course you get this whole thing from the money demand function. Okay, you just make it M as the subject of the formula. So nominal money demand, we have got this M over P is equal to this function, which we have calculated that it's equal to 634. So you can just say M over P is 634, then make M the subject of the formula, because what we want is to get the nominal money demand, not the real money demand, because the real money demand, we have it read that it's 634. Okay, so what we want is to get the nominal money demand. So we're just going to make M the subject of the formula. But we've already found that M over P is 634. So if M over P is equal to 634, then let's just make M the subject of the formula. Okay, excuse. Let's just make M the subject of the formula. And the moment we do that, we've got this. So I've got the price level. I think we were given that the prevailing price is 50. So if the prevailing price is 50, we're just going to multiply that 50 times the 634. So 50 times 634, I think you're getting 31,700 kwacha. So this is the quantity of nominal money that is circulating in the economy. Okay, so I think you're able to see that the difference between real and nominal is that nominal is just like the nominal amount that is circulating. Okay, but with the real, you are trying to deflate that money in terms of inflation. You are trying to remove the effect of inflation. So it's more like someone is getting a salary of 31,700 kwacha, but in actual sense, this guy is just getting 634 because he can only purchase goods worth 634 out of his salary of 31,700 kwacha. Okay, and this is the reason why economists pay attention to real variables than nominal variables. All right.
So I have a question.
Go ahead, please.
Okay, can we go back to your solution? I know I've noticed one thing there on your solution. At first, you tried using this formula, the price times quantity, which I was also thinking of. So, like, when do you know when to exactly use the price times quantity? Because it's also nominal money demand, right? So, like, when do you know, like, when to use this one? The M is equal to PY, and when do you know when to use the M over
We can't use this one because we don't have velocity.
Oh, okay.
You see that?
Yeah.
If
Plus we had
had velocity, would have used velocity.
what would have been the formula? Would have said MV is equal to PY, then replace V with the velocity given in price time rather than divide, right?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Okay. All right. Let's get the velocity.
But what would have been our M? What would have been our M if we had used that formula?
Ma?
What would have been our M if we had used that formula?
We are looking for M. We are looking for M. So if I had used this formula here, would have just made M the subject of the formula because we are looking for M. And then we have P and Y. What we don't have is the velocity. That's why I didn't use this formula. Because I realized that, I don't have velocity. So I had to cancel and go for this one.
Alright, okay.
Okay. Let's get the velocity now. Let's get the velocity. So velocity, now that we have M, we have P, we have Y, we can use this formula and get velocity. So MV is equal to PY. Just make V the subject of the formula, which is a PY over M. which is just nominal GDP over the prevailing quantity of money. Okay, so nominal GDP is 50,000 divided by 31,700 because our aim is 31,700, and then we're finding that where the rate at which money is changing hands is just about 1.5, 1.6, let me say so. So the velocity is 1.5772. We are done like that. Okay, do you have issues? Do you have issues?
In a situation where we're given k, since velocity is also equal to 1 over k, right?
Yes.
So in a situation given k, would use that formula, right?
Yes, that is if you have the variables to fit in there.
No, okay, alright, thank you.
You're welcome. Alright, let's...
Hello, sir. Will you please repeat? I wasn't able to hear you. Yeah.
Where?
On how to find the nominal.
Oh.
The
Oh, okay. Nominal. If you have understood on how to get the real, then we are fine. Okay? Because the real, we found that is 634. So, if the real is 634, then for me to get nominal, because we understand even from the definitions of real and nominal, that real is something inflated for, corrected for inflation, something corrected for inflation, and then with nominal is something which is inflated. Okay? And if that is true, then for you to get the nominal, you're just going to make M the subject of the formula. You're just going to make M the subject of the formula. Okay? You have the price level already given the question, which is 50. So you're just going to multiply 50 times 634, because you understand that 634 is nothing but your real. So if you do that, you're going to get 31,700 kwacha. So that's how you get the nominal. Alright, Mr. Kennedy.
Alright, thank you. Thank you.
You're welcome. Suppose that the price level doubles, recalculate the values for the variables above. So what if the price is now 100? From 50, it doubles from 50. So 50 times 200 kwacha. So the prices have actually doubled, 50% increase, or 100% increase actually. So if that's the case, let's recalculate the values for the variables above. So what they mean is, now that the price level has adjusted to 100 kwacha, calculate the real money demand, calculate the nominal money, calculate the velocity. Okay, that's what they mean. So let's do that. So if the price doubles, we expect it to be 100. So there's a comment here. Okay, real money demand does not change because changes in prices only affects nominal variables according to the classical dichotomy. Thus, real money demand is not going to change. So, you remember the classical dichotomy. We said that where there's a separation between nominal variables and nominal variables. Okay? So, with the classical dichotomy, we said that changes in price levels only affects nominal variables. Real variables are not affected because, we are getting this whole conclusion from the classical dichotomy. Okay? So if you don't remember what the classical dichotomy is all about, well, I don't know. But I think I'm just from explaining that the classical dichotomy says that there's a separation between nominal variables and real variables where changes in price levels, inflation, only affects nominal variables, not real variables. Okay. So we expect the real money demand to remain unchanged, 634, just like that, 634. Okay. We expect the real money demand to be 634, just like that. So, in case you're wondering why, the reason is the classical dichotomy, which is what I'm from explaining. That there's a separation between real variables and nominal variables. Meaning that if we witness a change in, let's say, price levels, the only factors or the only variables that are going to respond to that change are the nominal variables. Okay? So real variables are not affected by changes in price levels. This is because of the classical dichotomy. Alright. So in this case, we don't expect real money demand to change. It's gonna be 634. But with the nominal, we expect it to change because M over P, if we make M the subject, now the price is no longer 50, it's 100. So it's going to be 100 times 634, which is 63,400 kwacha as the quantity of money circulating. Alright. Okay, and then velocity of money is a real variable that is not affected by the changes in nominal variables because of the classical dichotomy again. Okay, thus velocity is not going to change. So the only variable that is going to change in this case is the nominal money demand, because this is the only nominal variable in this case. Okay, if we had another nominal variable that is affected by changes in price, well, it would have changed. But in this case, real money demand is a real variable. So real variables are not affected by changes in nominal variables because of the classical dichotomy. So it's if you don't understand the classical dichotomy, it's high time, maybe at your own free time, you go back the classical dichotomy, understand it, because, well, it has got a lot of applicability in macroeconomics. Okay, and one of those applicabilities is what we're talking about right now, right here. So there's a separation between nominal variables and real variables. So changes in nominal variables do not affect real variables. Are we together there, guys?
Yes, sir. But my question is, how about the opposite of velocity of money, the constant parameter? Is it real or nominal? I'm saying yes, me personally I've understood what you said, but my question is, how about, since you said the velocity of money is a real variable, how about the opposite, the constant parameter? Is it real or nominal?
If velocity is constant, then we expect the inverse of that to be constant, because what you're talking about is just 1 over v, isn't it?
Yes, yes.
So if v is constant, we expect the whole thing to be constant, because it's still going to be 1 over that very variable.
Okay, alright, thank you.
Okay. Another question? So please, my people, we are starting from Mr. Banda now. So all those funny things that you are doing, I think they must come to an end. Because Banda, hey, I know him. We have a quiz over the holiday. And don't forget, that was our intake. Oh yeah. Alright, and it was on Sunday. Okay, so let's continue. 5. Suppose in Zambia, the velocity of money is constant. Okay? Right there, you can tell that it's a real variable. So suppose in Zambia, the velocity of money is constant. Real GDP grows at 5% per year. Okay? Okay, so real GDP is growing at 5%. Wow, how I wish this can be translated into reality. So real GDP grows at 5% per year. The money stock grows at 14% per year. Except this shouldn't be reality. 14% is too much. Okay, so the money stock grows by 15% per year, and the nominal interest rate is growing at 11%. What is the real interest rate? So this whole thing is coming from Fisher. Okay, this whole question is coming from Fisher. So if you understand the Fisher equation, understand the Fisher effects, well, your whole man dry, very much dry. Not even a single drop of rain is affecting you. So suppose in Zambia the velocity of money is constant, real GDP grows at 5% per year, the money stock grows at 14% per year, and the nominal rate of interest is growing at 11%. What is the real interest rate? Alright, so this whole thing, as I would say, is coming from the Fisher effect. The Fisher effect. Because understand that the moment V is constant, it's automatic. Okay, it's automatic that we're talking about the Fisher effect. We're talking about the Fisher effect. And we understand that if that is true, then changes will reflect to changes in money supply, will reflect to changes in inflation and deflation, where you can derive the real from there. Let's do this. So how do we get percentage changes? How do we get percent? Remember, MV is equal to PY. It's the same thing here, no difference whatsoever. The only thing that is changing is that I've converted that equation into percentage changes. I've just converted that equation into percentage changes. So I've got percentage change in money supply plus percentage change in velocity of money must equal percentage change in price plus the percentage change in output. But we understand that percentage changes in prices will translate to nothing but inflation, and then those things. So they're saying that V is constant. They're saying that V is constant, meaning that the percentage change in money is direct equal to nominal GDP. Okay? Because change in P plus change in Y, basically we understand that if we convert this back to normal equation, this is just PY. Okay? So, look, let me even confuse you. Let's go. This is simple. So, percentage change in money supply is equal to the percentage change in the price level plus the percentage change in output. And then they're saying that real GDP is growing at 5%. So, real GDP is just Y. Y is equal to that. So, they're saying that real GDP is growing at 5% per year. This can be nice, right? So real GDP grows at 5% per year. And wait, guys, are you aware that our GDP is going at negative too? In case you didn't know. Did it come negative? Piper. So real GDP grows by 5%. So let's just replace in the values there. So 14 money supply is growing at 14% is equal to this change in P, change in Chanchan plus 5 is just that one there. And then what we want is to get the percentage change in price as the subject of the formula, because this reflects inflation. Okay, this reflects inflation. So if we make change in P over P the subject of the formula, which is just inflation, we are going to have 14 minus 5, which is 9, which means if money supply is growing at 14% and output is growing at 5%, we must expect inflation to grow at 9%. Okay? Okay, so the conclusion of the whole matter is that if money supply is growing at 14%, output is growing at 5%, we must expect inflation to grow at 9%. But what we want is to get the real interest rate. And where do we get the real interest rate? We're getting this from, of course, the Fisher effect. Okay? So the nominal rate of interest is equal to the real rate of interest plus the inflation rate. And then from the question, they have told us that the nominal interest rate is growing at 11%. So nominal interest rate is 11%. So 11 is equal to the real rate of interest is what we want. Okay, plus it inflation rate, or just from finding inflation rate there, 9. Okay, let's make the real rate of interest the subject. If we do that, we are going to discover that if the money supply is growing at 14%, output is growing at 5%, and then if because of that inflation is going at 9%, then we must expect the real rate of interest to be growing at 2%. So thus the real rate of interest is 2%. It's as simple as that. Do you have questions? This is coming from the quantity theory and Fisher. Do you have questions, guys? Maybe I've been kicked out.
We can get you, Mr. George.
Okay, thanks, bro.
You've not been kicked out.
Questions, guys? Questions? Okay, if it's quiet, I believe all is well. If you don't ask today, you're going to ask Mr. Banda.
Mr. Lungu.
Matambo, yes, go ahead.
Well, how about in a situation where we were told to find the nominal interest rate, and then we haven't been given the real. We haven't been given. Oh, okay. So when we're told to find the nominal interest rate, we use the same procedure, right? Okay. Alright.
Okay. Okay, cool. So, well, with what I've explained, with what we've done together, I don't know if you have questions. Well. Okay. Am I? Was that Carol? Okay. Let's go to question 2. Question 2 is saying, consider a small open classical economy. Use an appropriate model and graph to explain in detail what happens to the real exchange rate if the government, 1, engages in expansionary fiscal policy. Okay, so given that we've got this small open economy Zambia, let's use an appropriate model and graph to explain in detail what happens to the real exchange rate if the government engages in expansionary fiscal policy and again engages in the contractionary fiscal policy. All right, and then we understand from what we've been doing that, well, if there's some form of relationship that exists between savings and of course net exports and interest rate. Okay, so the question is saying, given that we've got the small open economy, what happens if there's expansionary fiscal policy? Okay, so an expansionary fiscal policy reduces national savings. So first of all, I've got this model. We understand this because we did this together. So I've got this model here. So I've got national savings 1, and then on the vertical axis I've got the real interest rate. On the horizontal axis we've got net exports, and then initially we have national savings there. Yeah, and we understand that national savings basically translates to net exports, because it is what you save that you can actually it is from what you save that you can engage in trade with other countries. So what I'm saying is, if the government engages in expansionary fiscal policy, given that the supply of national savings is constant, they not expect is this government to approach BOZ, this government to approach Zanaco and say, you Zanaco, give us money, we're going to give you later. What we want is to engage in the expansionary fiscal policy. So what is going to happen is the savings are going to reduce, because the government does not borrow 2 kwachas, they borrow billions of kwachas. So because of that, national savings are going to reduce. So from that one to that one there. All right. So what we expect is, now that the government has actually, more like removed the little savings that you had as an economy, what we expect is a reduction in the supply of kwacha. We expect a reduction in the supply of kwacha, and now that the supply of kwacha is reduced, we then expect exchange rate to increase from the smaller one to a higher level. Why? Because the cost of you borrowing, the cost of you getting kwacha has increased, because this good has become low in supply. This good has become low in supply. Okay, so expect the price of this good to increase. So that's the intuition. So an expansionary fiscal policy is going to reduce national savings, as shown here. So I say that an expansionary fiscal policy reduces national savings from NS1 to NS2, where NS is national savings. So when the government engages in expansionary fiscal policy, what follows is a reduction in national savings. And because there's now a reduction in national savings, what we expect is an increase in the real rate of interest. Okay, so we expect the interest rate to increase from E1 to E2, which is more like the exchange rate in this case. So it's going to increase from E1 to E2. The reason is simple: you are reducing the supply of kwacha, so expect the value of kwacha to go up, because let's say there are more foreigners that are demanding kwacha, and then the kwacha is in low supply. We must expect the price of kwacha to go up, and the price of kwacha is this which has gone up from E1 to E2. All right. Okay, so that's how the whole thing is done. So the reduction in national savings leads to an increase in the real rate of interest from E1 to E2. This increase in the interest rate causes net exports. Now, what I'm saying is, it is these very savings that you use for net exports. So now that you don't have enough money to help you, I'm breaking.
Should be a network.
Okay, Chris, change the position. So, what I'm trying to say is that it is these very national savings that we use to engage in trade. So now that we don't have enough kwacha for us to engage in trade, we must expect the volume of trade to go down, and that is why we've got reduction in national savings from NX1 to NX2 with that arrow to the left, to the left, to the left. Are you there? So this is what happens when the government engages in engages in expansionary fiscal policy. So the ultimate impact is the reduction in a volume of trade, as we have seen there. Okay, because it's more like for them to borrow from us, it's becoming more expensive. So we must expect our trade volume to reduce. Someone wants to say something? Or maybe it's just my man. Okay, sorry. Alright. So that's what happens, huh? That happens. And then, I don't know if I'm okay with question 1. Because I'm not going to go back to this. Alright.
Mr. George, I've got a question.
Go ahead.
Yes, would you mind sharing your slide?
I'm not sharing my slide?
Your solution.
No.
Your solution, sorry.
No. No. Chris.
Say yes, I do.
What?
No. Okay, I'll share. I'm just a bit.
Mr. George, I mean presenting.
Oh, you mean presenting?
Presenting.
I'm not sharing.
Yeah.
Is that the case with
I'm
everybody?
talking about your solutions.
Oh, okay.
I'm talking about the solution, not the question paper.
Okay.
Yes, my question is that horizontal line, sorry, the vertical line, is it not supposed to be saving minus investment? Is it just supposed to be saving? And then along if you look at what the vertical axis, what you've labeled there is a real interest rate. Is it not supposed to be the exchange rate?
Exchange rate, real interest rate. Okay, initially, yeah, I think you're right. It was supposed to be real exchange rate. Not real interest rate, but real exchange rate.
Isn't this the same?
And then how about that saving?
It's
Is
just
it not supposed to be saving minus investment?
savings minus investment. No, it's the same thing. It's the same thing.
What do you mean? Saving minus investment is the same as saving.
What is national savings?
Is that what you're saying?
Don't you use the national savings for trade?
National saving is public saving plus private saving.
What's your argument there?
So what you really mean is that my concern here is it not supposed to be saving minus investment?
Let's get back to the definition of. Let's get back to this, because I think I've defined some variables here. I've said late savings minus investment equal to NS. Okay, we should decode.
Oh, okay. I've gotten your point now.
Okay. Okay, thanks for that. Thanks. All right. So as usual, with Mr. Banda, what else? I think don't forget to define your variables. Don't forget to do that, because just like Chris has said, someone will just come and look at that and make a conclusion. So make sure you try by all means to define some variables and everything. Alright, I think that was the only concern. We can continue. So the opposite of what we are talking about here. The opposite, what happens if there's the opposite of what we're talking about? Instead of having an expansionary fiscal policy, we have a contractionary fiscal policy. We have a contractionary fiscal, which means instead of them, which can't happen, instead of them stopping the behavior of increasing it, let me end there. So if there is a contractionary fiscal policy, we expect the government to reduce on its expenditures. Okay, we expect the government to reduce on its expenditures. So if, as always, define this variable NS to be there, and then at that particular level of net exports, we have that level of interest. Okay, I've got that level of exchange rate there, real exchange rate there, and then if there's a reduction in government expenditure, we expect net exports to increase from that level. The volume of trade must increase from that level to that level there, because now banks have got more money. You have more money that you can use for trade. So I'm saying that a contraction in fiscal policy, either by an increase in taxes, or no. Just a moment, I want to analyze something. No, a contraction in fiscal policy by reduction in government expenditure. Okay, if the government reduces its expenditure, is going to lead to an increase in savings. Since we have got this equation, y minus c minus g is equal to nx. So if this thing is reducing, then what we expect is the whole term to increase. Okay, so if that increases, then expect nx to increase. Thus, a reduction in g makes savings to increase. Okay, an increase in national savings is going to lead to an increase, or is going to increase, from that level to that level. Okay, so initially our trade volume was that one, but now that the government has reduced on its expenditures, we expect our trade volume to increase from that level to that level. So someone can argue that, okay, from our analysis, is it true then that if the government spends less, then are going to witness high volume in terms of trade? Then the answer is going to start with the question, what do you have for you to trade with other countries? Okay, so yes, that question can be very practical and very real, saying that, okay, since from what I've seen from this model, if the government spends less, then which means that the country has got more money that it can actually use for trade. Then, if that is true, then let our government stop, or if not stop, but let them minimize on the expenditures for us to increase the trade. But then the question is, okay, it's okay. But then, what do you have for you to offer on the market? I was just trying to argue. All right, let's get back to our question. So that's your food for thought, huh? So I say that the increase in national savings increases the amount of domestic currency for exchange with foreign currencies, which makes real interest rate, I meant to say exchange rate, okay, exchange rate, which makes the exchange rate to reduce from E1 to E2. So initially our exchange rate was there because we had the less amount of kwachas there. We had the less amount of kwacha. That is why the price for kwacha was very high. But now that we have got more kwacha available, we must expect the price for kwacha to reduce, huh? And now that the price for kwacha has reduced, this acts as a signal for other countries to trade with Zambia, because things like goods in Zambia are relatively cheaper. So let's go and buy more from Zambia. So if Zambia is having a lot of goods that it can offer on the market, yes, then Zambia can take advantage of the whole situation and ultimately grow economically. But then here's a situation where the exchange rate is okay, but you have got nothing to offer. What is it that you're gonna offer except Victoria Falls or something? Okay, which sometimes dries up. Okay, but yeah, so let me end it there. All right, do we have questions, guys? We have to move faster. So do you have questions, yes or no, so that I continue or I go back?
Mr. Motambo, how about in terms of if question, like in terms of constructionary fiscal policy?
You can plug it in, it's still fine.
How would you explain it, like in terms of the equations and whatnot? And also, like, can you also go on, like, in terms of the fiscal construction and expansion, saying in terms of the expansion, like because our culture has reduced, we become like okay in general because our savings have reduced, we become net borrowers. Can you go on by saying that, and then in terms
It's
of
perfectly fine. It's perfectly fine. You can go on in those areas as long as you don't mix up the words.
okay, all right then. Then yeah, answer the questions I've asked. Like kindly explain the equation. Like, oh, is the equation that I said y minus c minus g is equal to net. Is it no, net? I don't know.
So I think you and I understand that taxes only fits in there from consumption side. Huh? So if there's an increase in taxes, what happens to your consumption level? It's going to reduce, and if that reduces, what do you expect? Expect what?
Increased savings.
Hmm?
If consumption reduces, then there's going to be increased savings.
And if there's an increase in savings, what happens to our volume of trade?
It's going to be less.
Have we answered your question, you and I?
Thank you.
Perfect. All right. Another question, guys.
What was the question? Can you please show the question when it was cutting?
Just a minute. Yes, madam. Good, thanks. How are you?
You are having class?
Yes.
Oh,
Yeah, it's okay.
yeah, I need your help.
Oh, my help.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, even my help as well.
Okay.
Okay, yes. So I'm kind of raising money for school fees. I've been having issues with financing my school.
Okay.
So now there is some sort of opportunity on Facebook whereby someone is trying to promote his page. So he made a post 4 days ago.
Okay.
So that post which he made,
Mm-hmm.
people are commenting on that post, commenting, and then on those comments.
Okay. Let's go then. Where was I? Oh, okay. So we've looked at these two. And then let's look at the calculations. Consider a neoclassical model of an economy affected by COVID-19. Then use the information given below to answer the following questions. So consider a neoclassical model of an economy affected by COVID-19. And then...
Just have you started recording?
Yes, I have.
You paused it. Have you started recording?
Yeah. It's ticking. It's recording. Okay, good. So,
Okay.
we have this. The production function is this. Y is equal to 10.
The last time she tried, take it down, honey.
Take note of the name, please.
It's right there. I think it's sign up on my account.
Exhibit B.
Yes.
Okay, let's continue. Yeah, so we have got this production function, and then we've got capital 100, labor 25, real interest rate 5%, domestic price 100, foreign price 110, money supply 1,000, consumption function. We have the investment function. I've got government is equal to taxes equal to 50, net export function, where E represents a real exchange rate and small e represents nominal rate of exchange. The first question: calculate this economy's trade balance and show it on a savings investment diagram. Calculate this economy's trade balance and show it on a savings investment function. Alright, so trade balance is just the difference between what we export and what we import, which must equal net export. So if we want, we can just go straight and use this equation if and only if we have the value for E. Okay, if and only if we have the value for E, and possibly, yeah. But then let's try to use some one or two methods there. So we have got this equation. So I've got this. The consumption function is 75 plus 0.5 y minus t. But then we've been given what y is, and we've been given what taxes are. That was it here when we're given? Oh yeah, y was this. 10 root of capital labor. Okay, and so y is 10 root of capital labor, and then capital is 100, labor is 25, and then I mean, so if you do that, you have got 500 as the level of output. Yeah, you have got 500 as the level of output. I believe we're together there. Yeah, and then the consumption function is this 75 plus 0.5 of disposable income, which is becomes 75 plus 0.5 or 500 minus 50, because output is 500, tax is 50, which becomes 450. I believe you're getting a 300 as the total level of consumption, and then investment is 150 minus 4R, where 150 minus 4 times rate of interest we've been given that it is 0.05. When you plug in and calculate, I think you're getting 149.8. And then what we want is to get these net exports. But then we understand that savings is equal to output minus consumption minus government expenditure. Okay, I think we're together, guys. Savings is equal to output minus consumption minus government expenditure.
Have we been given our question?
Yes, here, 5%. Yes, we have. Here, 5%.
Alright, thank you.
We're using these variables that we've been given. Okay, we're using these variables exogenous. Okay, so I believe you're getting that as the total level of investment 149.8. Okay, what we want is to get this trade balance. Okay, but then maybe we can try to calculate for savings. Yeah, because investment, we're just from finding what investment is. Okay, so savings is equal to, you want to come? Okay, so savings is equal to y minus c minus g. Okay, where y is 500 from there, consumption is 300, we're just from calculating there, and then government expenditure, I think we've been told that it is 50. When you calculate, I'm sure you're getting a 150 unless otherwise. Okay, I'm sure you're getting 150 as the total level of savings. Then how do we get the trade balance? Trade balance is the difference between what we export and what we import, and this is where Christopher's question was coming from, which is savings minus investment. And then yeah, so savings, I think we have 150, investment, or just from calculating that it is 149.8. So when you do calculate, I think you're getting a 0.2 as your trade balance. Are we together there? Are we together?
Yes.
Okay.
I have a question. What's the difference between trade balance and balance of trade?
Trade balance, balance of trade. It's just that the other one is setting with trade, the other one is setting with balance. It's the same thing. No difference whatsoever. No difference. Alright.
So, alright, thank you.
Yeah, it's more like
Sir, I have a question.
Go ahead. I think that's Kennedy or something.
No, that solution we found.
Okay, go ahead.
We found out our net export to be 0.2. Yeah, our net export is 0.2 there, which is a trade balance. So what does it entail us in the economy? What does it represent, that one?
It's positive.
It's 0.2. What can we conclude about that?
What's the mathematical intuition of net export, net balance, net export? It's the difference between what we export and what we import. Eh? So if it's positive, then we're exporting more than we're importing. So it's still positive, even if it's a 0.2. We're still running a positive trade balance. So which means we're exporting more than we're importing. Had it been negative, we would have concluded that it's the opposite. We are importing more. It's a deficit. But in this case, it's still a trade surplus, even if it's a small number. Okay, Mr. Kennedy.
Okay, all right.
Okay, thanks.
All right, thank you.
You're welcome. Oh. Okay. All right. Perfect.
I think I've missed your solution. I have missed the part where I find 5% of domestic interest rate. Where is the domestic interest rate?
There. There.
For domestic interest rate.
It's there.
The real interest rate is equal to 5% of domestic interest rates. Therefore, that's what it's saying there.
Base apple.
There on the that's R is equal to 5% of the like real interest rate, 5% of domestic interest. Which is again R. So we just
no. What they mean is this 5% is for domestic interest rate. Not of. Nah.
She's talking about real interest and nominal.
No. This is.
I'm not talking about that. I'm not talking about that. I get you, sir. So it doesn't mean that I have to multiply 5%. It's not 5% of domestic interest rate. It's just 5%, and in brackets it's telling us to say it's a domestic interest rate, right?
Perfect.
Alright, thank you.
You're welcome. Okay. I think we are locomoting at the same pace. Okay, so we are done the first part, which is talking about trade balance. Oh, and show this on the savings investment diagram, which is what we've not yet shown. Okay, so now guys, for us to show this on this, we need to get the exchange rate. Okay, which is, where was that? Where E represents the real exchange rate. Okay, where E represents the real exchange rate. Okay, so what we need is for us to get the real exchange rate. The real exchange rate, not the real interest rate. Alright, so now that we've gotten our trade balance, remember we have got this trade balance function. Net export is equal to 50 minus 2e, and then we are from finding the net export, and then which was 0.2, which means we can just replace what net export is. We put 0.2 is equal to 50 minus 2e, and then we make e the subject to the formula, which is just going to give us 24.9 as the equilibrium rate of exchange. Okay, as the equilibrium rate of exchange. So I know someone is wondering, these figures, these are just theoretical figures, guys. Okay, these are just theoretical figures. I don't think I've got an issue there. Alright, so we have got that one as our equilibrium rate of exchange. And then we show this here. We understand that savings minus investment there, which we have defined to be net export, is 0.2. And then of course of the downward sloping net export function. So curve. And then we have got the on the vertical axis we have the real rate of exchange. And then we understand that from that curve, we are getting a negative relationship between the real rate of exchange and the level of net exports. Meaning that if the rate of exchange is high, our currency is becoming too expensive, so we expect trade to go down. If our exchange rate is going down, our kwacha is becoming more useless, more cheap. Meaning that we expect trade to increase. That is if we have what export except copper and Marco Polo towers. All right. Unless we have questions there.
What's one on X axis and why do we have 0.2 there instead of it being between the NX and S plus I curve?
Your question is what? I'm not getting your question, sorry. What's your question? Why do you have 0.2 here? Is it your question? Cool.
I'm saying what's found on the X axis? What's found on the X axis?
This is what is found on the x-axis, and there we have the real rate of exchange. So on the horizontal axis we have the net exports, and then on the horizontal axis we have got the exchange rate. All right. Cuckoo, are you there?
Okay, and the next question, yes, the other question.
Okay.
Is Why do we have 0.2 down there? Why not it being the gap between NX and S minus I?
Thank you. What is the gap between S minus I? What is the quantity of that gap? Because I believe your question is, why don't we have S minus I here? But the question is, what is the quantity of that S minus I? It's 0.2, so that's why I've got 0.2 there. Alright. Okay, are you there?
My network is breaking up. I'll just watch the recording, okay? It's fine.
Well, recording, well. Okay, let's go. That's your fingerprint.
Mr. George.
Yes, Christopher.
Yes, I've got a simple addition. Would you mind going? Yeah.
Okay, go ahead. Go.
To the previous slide.
Which one? The solutions or which slide?
Oh, sorry, the same paper. I'm sorry, same paper. The same question paper.
Okay, go ahead.
Yeah. Where it's saying the real interest rate is equal to 5%. Thank you. So my simple addition on this one is, remember Natasha wanted to multiply the 5% by the domestic interest rate. So the reason why they are showing this domestic interest rate is because this economy is like USA. Quite alright, it's open, it's an open economy, but its real interest rate is not determined by the world economic forces. Yeah, that's why we're seeing this. But if you look at countries like Zambia, you may discover that our interest rate is determined by world economic forces. So for this one, it's not determined by world economic forces. Yeah, that's why we're seeing that.
Alright, thanks for that. I think Natasha is there and everybody is there. Alright. Okay, so this is 16 past 6, so we have to close, Let's try to close. Calculate the net capital outflow, real and nominal exchange rate. Calculate the net capital outflow, real and nominal exchange rate. So how do we calculate the net capital outflow? Alright, so net capital outflow is nothing but you remember what we're looking at when we're looking at open economy. Yeah, we said net capital outflow is just savings minus investment, so which means we don't have issues there. I've got 0.2, and then what else? We have also been asked to find the real and nominal exchange rate, but the real one we already found. I think we did that. Where is that? Which is that one? 24.9. Okay, we found that one because that was the real. Okay. I think the only thing that we did not is the nominal, which we get from, remember this equation. Okay, so we said that maybe for the sake of, how do we get the net capital outflow? Net capital outflow is just a difference between savings and investment. And then we found this here on top, that it was, where was that, 0.2. Our savings was 150 and then our investment level was 149.8. The difference is just a 0.2. So that is giving us the net capital outflow. That is the net capital outflow. And if this is equal to net capital outflow, then well, net export is equal to 0.2. And then using our net export function, we can then get the real exchange rate, which is 24.9. How do you get that? You remember this equation here? That one there. 0.2 is our net export. So it's going to be net export, which is 0.2 is equal to 50 minus 2e. We make e the same as the formula. It's giving us 24.9. Alright. And then maybe the last part is saying the nominal rate of exchange. The nominal rate of exchange. Remember, we said that let e equal the nominal exchange rate. So as I've said, please, Mr. Banda, try by all means to define your variables. So in this case, we have defined that whenever you find this thing e, I mean, is a nominal exchange rate. So let E equal the nominal exchange rate. Okay, then E is equal to real exchange rate times P star over P, where P star is, remember what we were looking at last time? Foreign price and domestic price. Remember those things? I think we looked at this when we were looking at trade, nominal exchange. We're talking about Zambian car, US car, palikamoto kaso, kavits, not kavits. Volvo. Yeah, something like that. All right. So we get this equation from that very Bine.
Yes.
Okay. All right. So
Is it domestic over foreign or foreign over domestic?
I believe it's something like this. I think they've defined the variables there. Unless otherwise, P is the domestic, P star is the foreign price level.
It's foreign over domestic.
And I think it's foreign over domestic unless if otherwise. And I believe it's this. P star over P, where P star is the foreign and P is the domestic. Okay? Christopher?
Yeah, sure.
Yes,
I believe this is correct. P star over P. Yeah, it's this one. P star over P. Unless otherwise. But it's supposed to be P star over P.
yeah, it's correct.
Yeah, so the real exchange rate, we found it to be 24.9. So I'm just going to put there 24.9 times the ratio of the prices. So I believe when you do calculations, you're getting something like 27.39. Okay? Okay, you're getting 27.39. Then what can we conclude from here? So what we are seeing is that, first of all, our net capital outflow is 0.2. So that's a level of trade. That is the level of trade. And then the value or the exchange of kwacha against dollar is that 24.9. And then the ratio of, like, the relative value of a Zambian good to, let's say, an American good is that's the value there, the level of exchange, 27.39. Maybe we can link this small value to that high level of exchange rate. It's too much. Okay, like in practical terms. Okay, I'm not saying this is no. We are just analyzing here. Okay, we're just analyzing. I'm not saying that's part of the solution. No. Okay. So, because looking at that, someone wanted to come.
Could you please repeat analysis on the two values there for the real and the nominal? What conclusion would you draw?
No, I'm saying, looking at that, this one, 24.9, it's just telling us that this is the relative cost of Zambia against dollar. Not Zambia, sorry, kwacha against dollar. Okay, and then this one, I believe, is talking about the relative cost in terms of prices for a Zambian good and an American good. And then I didn't link this to anything. I just said those.
Mr. George,
Could you repeat one last time, sir?
What?
Sir, please.
What president?
Mr. George,
Yes, Christopher.
Mr. George,
Chris.
before you respond to Natasha, yes, when you're talking about relative currency, don't we use nominal?
I think.
And then when we are talking about product,
I swapped them.
Exactly.
and then when we talk about products,
I swapped.
Yeah.
I swapped them. Sorry.
That's what I wanted to confirm, sir, as well. What?
yeah, I think we can now respond to Natasha.
Okay, then you have already echoed what I wanted to say, so it's okay.
Yeah.
All right.
I'm not repeat.
Christopher, repeat.
Kukenga, we are just talking about how you interpret the real exchange rate and the nominal exchange rate. So if you are talking about relative currency, Okay, if you're talking about relative currency, then we're simply talking about the nominal exchange rate. Then if you're talking about relative products, how does this car cost in Zambia as compared to America? That's the real exchange rate now. Yeah, that's the difference.
Okay, ngayo okay.
So the takeaway message here. The takeaway message.
Yes, thank you.
Okay.
All right. Right. Let's continue. Assuming no. Due to global pandemic of COVID-19, many workers die and the labor force reduces to 16. Calculate the new balance of trade. Well, the only figure that is changing in this case is where's L? Yeah, the only figure that is changing is this. Instead of it being 25, it's now 16 because of Antovafa. Okay, so which means we have to recalculate the level of output and everything. Yeah. So if L is 16, you do that, find that it's now 400 units of output produced because labor has reduced, and then savings, the same stuff, consumption, function, 250 now. It was what? 300 somewhere there. Yeah, there it was 300. But now consumption has reduced because we expect output as well to reduce because of the reduction in the labor force. Yeah, so output has reduced to 400. Initially it was 500 kwacha. Initially it was 500 kwenda Ndalam. Initially it was 500, but now it's 400 units. And now because people have died, labor has reduced, output has reduced. We expect consumption to reduce. And since savings is the difference between savings is output minus consumption minus government expenditure. If we do that, we'll find that it's now 100. Savings is now 100. I think it was 150 somewhere in there. Okay, so you can see the trickle down effect because of the reduction in one important factor. We also see the trickle down effect. Remember DSI. So I've got savings now 100. So investment is going to remain unchanged because, well, investment has got nothing to do with whatever you are talking about in this case. Okay, unless otherwise, let me check the investment function just for clarity. No, it has got nothing to do with anything because, yeah, none of the variables are affected by output. Okay, so where were we? Okay, so yeah, then investment remains unchanged, that very level, because none of its variables are affected by any of what has happened. Okay, what is the new trade balance? Is savings minus investment, but savings in this case have reduced. So what we are seeing is now that our level of output has reduced because of a reduction in the labor. Okay, because of reduction in labor, what we're noticing is that we are now actually running a deficit. We are now running a deficit. You remember where the deficit is coming from. If a country produces an output that is less than domestic consumption, for example, we must expect us to borrow more, so as to compensate for that reduced output level and everything. So that is why we are borrowing now. We are running a deficit of 49.8. So this whole thing is coming from the fact that from the reduction, or because of the reduction in labor, in labor supply, output has reduced. And now that output has reduced, it's failing to even accommodate domestic demand. And because of that, for us to meet this excess demand, we must borrow. And that is why we are now getting a negative value of trade balance, which means we are running a deficit. Okay, we're running a deficit. All right. And then as the next part, maybe talking about the real exchange rate, which is the same thing. So what we're seeing is, okay, we can make some analysis here, because after plugging in the values to get our real exchange rate, we are seeing that we have 49.9. Initially, I think it was 24.9 or something like that. So what we are seeing is that because of that reduction in labor force, Okay, our output has reduced. And now that our output has reduced, what we are seeing is that we're going to have this impact of an increase in the rate of exchange. Okay, and because now we are increasing the rate of exchange, it's becoming more difficult for the foreigners to buy things from us. And mind you, we have produced nothing. We have produced less output. What are they going to demand from us? Nothing. So it is now us who are buying from them. Okay, it is now us who are buying from them. But that is not connected to what Mr. Banda wanted. What he wanted was the numerics. Okay, what he wanted was just the numerics. Okay, do you have questions there? Let's be fast, guys. There's just a minute. But just remaining with a minute.
So I think with me it's just an addition on the negative net exports we found. Yeah, and I stand to be corrected. I would say, remember where the question said we find a net outflow. I mean outflow rather. So net capital outflow basically it means that the country is doing well if we have a net capital outflow. But then if we have a net capital inflow, it means that the country is not doing well in that. And inflow means the results are negative, and if we have a negative result or reduced from the previous stage, yes, and if we have a reduction, it means that there's a deficit. Therefore, we become the borrowers and instead of the lenders. So basically what I'm saying is net capital outflow will become lenders, net lenders, and then with inflow we become borrowers. Yeah.
Okay, thanks for that contribution. Now I just want us to at least finish this, because what I thought was maybe but it's not going to be possible because it's already 30 minutes past 6. Okay, so assuming a constant velocity of money, so obviously is fixed. By how much should this economy's central bank adjust money supply to achieve its target 0% inflation given the COVID-19 pandemic? So let's assume that we've got a constant velocity of money. Okay, so change in V is 0. So what they want is to get a 0% level of inflation. Okay, how much or by how much must they play around with money supply? So I think with me, I just got it from here, from the quantity theory of money, that the percentage change in money plus a 0% change in what's this? Velocity must equal to the percentage change in money in output plus the 0% change in inflation. Because if they want inflation to be 0, change in price must be 0. Okay, so if this is constant, I'm assuming that it's not part of the model. Okay, I'm assuming that it's not part of the model. Then, if that's the case, then the money supply must be 500. But before I conclude, let me just check something. Okay, so initially the money supply was 1,000. Okay, the money supply was 1,000, and we said what was the rate of inflation? Let me just check. Just a minute, guys, before we go. What is that? We didn't find inflation here. Oh, it's another question. Okay, so what I'm saying is, since initially the money supply was this, okay, so we are making an assumption that initially when the money supply was this, our inflation rate had a positive value. Okay, had a positive value. But what they want is to maintain it at 0%. Okay, so if they want to maintain inflation at 0% from the quantity theory of money equation, okay, from the quantity theory of money equation, AMV is equal to PY, holding V constant, then the percentage change in money supply is going to directly affect output in this case. Why am I saying so? This is not going to be part of the model because we're assuming that it's constant at some predetermined level, which in this case are saying, okay, let's let it be at 0, and then we understand that if they want inflation to be 0, the change in price, the price, which is the percentage change in the price level, must be 0, because changes in price reflects nothing but inflation rate. Okay, so the percentage change in money supply so the adjustment must be from 1,000 to 500 kwacha for what is for inflation to be 0. All right, do we have debate there? This time. Oh, sorry.
Well,
Do we have a debate there? Okay.
while we're writing all the functions by their own variables.
Huh? Ade?
While we're saying change percentage, while we're saying percentage change of m over m, like while we're dividing.
That's how we get percentages. Or have you forgotten? How do we get the percentage change? P2 minus P1 over P1. Which is what I'm doing here. This is just change in M is M2 minus M1 divided by the initial value of M. That's how we get percentage changes. Alright, Kokenga. Are you there?
Alright, okay, thank you.
Okay. So let me do this.